Welcome. We are a part of the Youth Outreach Unit of the Oakland Police Department.
Do you think it's necessary to make assumptions about anybody you come in contact with?
Good question.
My name is Zenelson Garibo, and I'm one of the 2 students that represent all 36,000 students in our district. We have some cuts which will impact our students.
The district spends $6 million on police.
We don't really feel safe with police. It could be very triggering.
I don't really feel like they do anything to serve or protect us.
Let's go, gentlemen. The bell has rung.
I would love for you to come to a board meeting because I don't be seeing young people.
We should cut police from our schools and redirect that money into programs that are going to support young people.
Time for you to listen to the community.
The time to make history, stand with us black and brown students, is not tomorrow, it's today.
That motion was not adopted.
My family is undocumented. Me being close to police means that I'm putting their life in this country at risk.
We made it, we celebrated and did it once more.
The Black Panthers was founded in Oakland. A lot of things that they fought for were as simple as access to education.
Get it like we get it all our lives.
When you've been treated so poorly by the people meant to protect you, you just give up.
Get up, get up now. Get up, get up.
The superintendent has closed schools.
Coronavirus is different when you want to go do things.
I feel like I'm putting my family at jeopardy, but this ain't over.
We spread our message by standing together. That's how they hear us.
Always remember, ain't no power like the power of the youth, because the power of the youth don't stop. This is history in the making, y'all.
You have had a front seat to the turmoil that's been going on for years. I feel like this is a different fire that it has been lit.
Black lives, black futures, black graduates, black children.
Peter, good morning. Jeff in Las Vegas.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's such a thrill to talk to you. I saw Homeroom at Sundance, but I wasn't able to get an interview with you. So I'm a big documentary fanatic, and this is just a fascinating documentary. And you began to follow the class of 2020 at Oakland High School in the fall of 2019, but COVID obviously interrupted your shoot. And I was curious, how did you reimagine that? Because that must have thrown you for a loop.
I mean, it's part of the magic of documentary is, the discovery of, life, or the serendipity of life, and what that reveals and what that means. And there's always some degree of that when you're making a documentary, things you don't anticipate, things that you need to adapt to, decisions that you kind of have to make on the fly. This was obviously a big one with COVID, shutting down society, but, in particular, the school where we were filming got shut down, and, so we had to stop filming. And it was interesting because what happened parallel to that was the sort of, I don't know how to describe it, the Great Awakening. It's definitely something that was obviously happening in Oakland prior in terms of social justice movements and, police accountability and all that stuff. Oakland is no stranger to that. But I think with the George Floyd situation rising to an international level in terms of people simultaneously cooped up in their houses and then sort of having this urge to sort of go out into the streets to express their feelings about this issue, those two things collided. And
a friend of mine said it was like release the Kraken. Is that what happened? Because especially when teenagers have all this energy and all this time on their hands, definitely because it's so different than I went to high school because of social media and the seniors and high school kids taking selfies and doing all this stuff we expect on social media, but you capture their political awareness and their support for activism, which I thought that's a game changer, isn't it?
Yeah, and the film, even though we kind of like noticed Denelson right away, and he was the student that was a student representative sitting on the school board. We noticed him, and we definitely were like going to keep track of him because we felt he could take us places and reveal things. but the film was much more about sort of a general sense of like, what's it like to be a young person today, the emotional lives of kids today, and sort of inspired by, I grew up on 80s movies like The Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off and, Pretty in Pink. And, these are all stories about high school, mainly from the perspective of white suburban kids. And so one of the intentions early on in the project was to reimagine that sort of genre from the perspective of this diverse group of kids in Oakland. And so when COVID hit, the emergence of sort of what the kids were doing politically became much more of a dominant thematic thread in the film. So we started to follow it because they were, despite COVID, they were still working on this initiative to remove the police from the schools, which is something they had started, which we didn't even realize was in the footage, but they had started that basically on day one.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I guess you and me grew up in the same era. I grew up on those same kind of movies. And but I was one of those kids in 6th grade. I came from the affluent area in Las Vegas, and they did the integration. So they're busing me across town. So that was a sobering look for me. So I've always seen the other side.
Right.
But it's never been represented before.
Right.
I mean, I experienced it, and you showcase that how students could be intimidated for having police in their school. When I went to school, we didn't have police officers. Even in the bad neighborhoods, we had monitors. But that was a big eye opener because I didn't realize that they had such a presence in these schools and how intimidating that could be for students.
Yeah, and we didn't fully understand it. There's security. There's always been security at schools, but there's actually there was a dedicated police force at the school for which there's a pretty significant budget. And the students, the point that they made was actually quite important, which is that they're there trying to get an education. And those resources could be used for other things like, helping them get into college or helping them, with after school programs or just coming of age. And so that the fact that they had the wherewithal and the insight and the sort of courage to say, no, this isn't okay, what was quite amazing, and something that, it became very clear to us after sort of COVID hit that this was going to be the, that we could follow that thread through COVID because they were still organizing online through Zooms, through their, peers to keep pushing on this, throughout the year.
And what kind of hurdles did you have gaining the trust from the students themselves to be on camera and also permission from the school district? Right? So it's like a double-edged sword, wasn't it?
It's the third in a trilogy. I've been making films about Oakland since 2007. With the Waiting Room was our first film. It was a film about access to healthcare. It was shot at Highland Hospital, which is right down the street from Oakland High. And so, and that film went on to get shortlisted for Academy Award. It got a lot of attention. People loved the film. Then we made a film about the Oakland Police Department in 2017, won the Director's Prize at Sundance. Yeah. So these films got a lot of notoriety. I'm kind of like well-known in the community. And so there was a sort of built-in relationship there and some trust. And so that when we approached the school district, they understood sort of who I was and what kind of storyteller I was. And then we were also able to bring parents and students and teachers in to watch my films. We had a few like special events where we brought them in and showed them the Waiting Room and the Force and gave them an opportunity to talk to me about this new film and what my intentions were and ask me questions and so forth. So that really helped in terms of creating that foundation of trust.
And you've been quoted that your daughter Karina was your strength and inspiration for Homeroom.
Yeah. And I mean, she this was her class, was the year that she was to graduate, and we had been trying for years to help her, with she suffered from depression and anxiety and eventually substance abuse, like a lot of kids, in her age. And you mentioned sort of how things were so different now, social media and all these things, and her story is a part of, I think, many young people's story that it's starting to come out in terms of how they're struggling with drugs, mental health, social media, all these things. It's just different to be a young person today And when she passed away as we started filming, and so the film was dedicated to her. And I thought about canceling the project at first, but then I decided just to push on, and that maybe that it could in some way honor her, or help tell her story in a small way. We're probably going to do another project more directly about adolescent mental health, and that's where the project sort of began. And of course the issue, the political dimensions of it kind of took over, but that is something that we're working on doing another project.
Well, Peter, congratulations on Homeroom. Thank you for talking to me today. Fascinating documentary. I love the whole trilogy. I've seen them all, so I applaud you.
I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
And
so
they're
much.
going to be available on Hulu.
All of them, exactly.
The whole trilogy.
The whole trilogy on Hulu. So congratulations, and I can't wait to see what you do next. And thank you for talking to me today. It's been a real pleasure.
All right, Jeff. Thanks so much.